Hello everyone, welcome to Black Rook Hold on Heroic mode. My name is Velok and let's get started. So at the beginning of the dungeon here we just have a few trash packs, quite a few casters in here, so any AoE stuns and interrupts will help out a lot here just to group them up and AoE them down. With our group here we have a Demon Hunter tank, I have me as a Resto Shaman, we have a Mage, a Death Knight and Enhancement Shaman. So we've got quite a good chunk of AoE damage here which makes the trash go down pretty quick. The trash isn't overly difficult. I have some light AoE damage on the group, but it's nothing really to worry about as long as you're not pulling several groups at once. As you're going through here, the tank damage isn't so high either, so your tank should be able to cope with the damage without too much problems, especially if they're using active mitigation. As you can see, the trash isn't doing too much damage here, as you can see by the healing health bars here I have on my screen. So as we move up the stairs here we come to the first boss. This is the Amalgamation of Souls. He just has a few abilities. First one is a Swirling Scythe. He will throw it at a random player and it will spin around at the location, dealing damage and knocking back anybody who it hits. So just try and position it away from the melee. I did a pretty poor job of it here, as you'll see in a moment. But generally, if you can, just try and keep it away from the group. He will also cast a Soul Echo. This will fragment a player's soul and apply a debuff to them. As they move, they will leave behind like a mirror image of themselves that will explode after a couple of seconds, so just avoid that. And his final ability in the first phase here is Reap Soul. This is a massive frontal cone shadow attack. If it hits you, you will take increased damage, so try and avoid it, and the debuff does stack, so you really need to avoid it. At 50% health, he will start stage 2. You will see these restless souls spawning around the room and they will slowly start moving towards the boss. Your group wants to kill these off before they reach the boss. They haven't got a lot of health, so even a healer can kill one or two before they reach the boss. If they do get to him, they will give him a stacking damage buff. This buff will be used to buff his follow-up ability, which is called Soul Burst. Once all of the restless souls are gone, he will cast Soul Burst and it deals quite a massive AoE damage to the group. In our group he only got 2 stacks, but hit everybody for about half their health. So you really want to keep those restless souls under control, so he doesn't one-shot the group with the follow-up Soul Burst. After he is dead though, he's pretty simple, probably easier than a normal mode to be honest. After he's dead you can simply move on. There's some roleplay events here with the Ravencrest family if you're into roleplay. And you just need to wait for them to unlock the door. Now this doesn't usually, it just takes a few moments here and they'll channel the beam and open the door and then you can progress through the dungeon. And you'll find up the stairs here just some more trash. Nothing too much to worry about as you go through the library. There's some more role-playing events here as you can see with the talking heads. They'll kind of give you an ongoing story throughout the dungeon. You'll find these spiderlings here. They will apply a stacking dot when they die, so healer just dispel that once the tank or anybody else has quite a few stacks on them. You don't want to dispel it right away because it'll just apply several more stacks right after, so wait till it reaches quite a few stacks before you dispel it all at once. But as you go up the stairs here you're just dealing mostly with spiders, and once you go in here you will find some more night elves here, and as you go through it you can just do some more stuns. As you can see they actually do some frontal cone stuns, so your tank needs to position them away from the group, otherwise your healer may struggle with all the AoE damage going out. Otherwise it's nothing nothing big to deal with. It's just more of the usual interrupts and just keep them faced away and heal up the AoE damage, and once again AoE stuns will help quite a lot here. But this trash here hits a lot harder than the starting trash, as you can see on the health bars, so I'm having to spam quite a lot to keep people alive, but it isn't too much of a problem. I only had to pop my Spurtling Totem in the previous pull there because we got stunned, otherwise I wouldn't have needed it. So as we clear this trash pack here, after this is dead, the mini boss who's standing up there, he will jump down. He doesn't really do a whole lot. He will summon a couple of adds who will fight with him. But other than that he's nothing really special himself. He does do quite a lot of tank damage here, so your tank maybe needs to do some cooldowns, but otherwise you can group up, and I put some AoE healing in the group, nothing too strenuous for the healer. Depending on your class though, of course other healers may struggle more than a shaman here, but generally it isn't too much of a problem. So once he's dead you can just progress through the side here, and once you go up you will find even more trash. There's quite a lot of trash in this dungeon, but a whole run will take you probably about 30 minutes, assuming you don't wipe. But that's about the average for the whole Legion expansion. Now as you go through here you can kill more trash, go up the stairs again, a lot of stairs here, and you will be coming up to the second boss. This is Elissa Ravencrest. This is a demon hunter boss. Has a few abilities. First one for the tank is Vengeful Shear. This will deal high damage to the tank and will apply a 50% damage taken debuff that stacks, and this only applies if the tank doesn't have active mitigation. So if your tank has active mitigation available and active when this ability hits, they will not get this debuff. Unfortunately, the tank in my group must not have known this because he got this stacking damage debuff every single time. Other than that, the boss will do a Dark Rush. They'll just charge a player and they'll leave the trail of fire on the ground there, as you can see. But you can simply just move out of it. It isn't really much of a problem. And the final ability for this phase is just a brutal glaive. The boss will just throw a glaive at a person and it'll apply a bleed effect. It can just be more or less healed over with a heal over time. Other than that, this boss is pretty simple in this phase, but the boss does have like a fury bar. Once this fills up, the boss will jump up to the ledge there and just spam cast eye beams, and it'll follow a player and leave trails of fire behind. While this is going on, the two adds will spawn. There's a vanguard that needs to be tanked. This does a frontal cone stun, so keep it faced away from the group. And there will be an Arcanist which spams Arcane Blitz. This attacks a single target and gives a stacking damage buff to the Arcanist. So just try and interrupt him and avoid standing in front of the Vanguard and just kill them off pretty quickly. They haven't got a lot of health. After they're dead, the boss will still stay up there channeling Eye Beam. Each time she channels Eye Beam, it will cost Fury, so she will keep spamming Eye Beam until she runs out of Fury, and then will jump down and phase 1 will start again. But most of the time you can't kill her before she jumps down for the second time. So it isn't too much of a problem. If you're a melee, just take the beam out of melee. If you're a DK, I see it with a DK in our group who soaked it with anti-magic shell, so it wasn't too much of a problem. But other than that, the Eye Beam isn't really too much to worry about. It's just keeping it away from the group and running away to avoid the damage. After that, the boss is dead, and you can go and collect your loot. You may have to jump down there off the edge because she falls down there, so you can jump down there and run down the stairs to get the loot. As you move on, there's just a few more trash packs. These are new types of trash here. Again, they don't really do anything special, maybe some heavy tank damage, but other than that there's nothing too much to worry about. So you can just continue and push through with, again, more AoE stuns and ECC just to mitigate the damage as best as possible. It makes it easier on the healer. As you go through here, you will just find these little scavengers here. They have a little potion that they will drink, and if they drink it, it will basically make them huge and give them a massive attack speed increase, something around 400%. But your tank can easily manage this, especially if it's 1 or 2. There isn't really a lot to worry about. And generally they will die before they actually drink this potion most of the time. This one here got one through, and you can see he gets absolutely huge, but even so his damage isn't that much. Now this is the final trash pack before the stairs here. As you can see on the left, you have these boulders rolling around the stairs. They will come either on the left or right side of the stairs. You just have to kind of avoid them as you're running up the stairs. If you get hit, you will take quite a chunk of damage and you will get knocked back, either knocked back or stunned. I can't remember because I didn't get hit by them, but you want to avoid those at all costs because the damage is quite high. Once you get up to the top of these stairs, you will see this Felguard here, and these Felbats, they will constantly run down the stairs and keep spawning until your group moves up the stairs, and it'll cancel it out. And up here you'll just find a few more Felguards and a bunch more Felbats. Felguards will cast a fixate ability which will order the bats to fixate on a target, but you can use stuns, disorientates to cancel this effect, but you can't interrupt it. But generally the bats don't have a lot of health, so you can just AoE them down pretty quickly and not have to worry about it too much. As you go through here, you'll find more of the same trash, more Felbats and more Felguards. Again, they all have the fixate ability, so just if you can stun it or disorientate the Felguard to interrupt it, but otherwise it's not much to worry about. We come to the third boss here. This is Smashspite the Hateful. He has a couple of abilities that you need to watch out for. First of all is Hateful Gaze. He will focus on one player, and after a brief delay he will charge at them, and it'll deal quite a lot of damage. Once he hits the target, it will also apply a debuff that increases the damage you take from further charges. So what you need to do is, after about 1 or 2 stacks, if a person has 1 or 2 stacks from being charged, you will need to have somebody else stand in the line of sight between the boss and the target, and then that person will then soak the damage in the stack instead. So that's all you need to do to counter that. Other than that, he will do an earth-shaking stomp, which is just damage everybody and knock you back a little bit. He also has a brutality bar, which he gains brutality, kind of like rage. It'll fill up as he melees the tank. The harder he hits the tank, the more damage he does with his melee attack, the more brutality he will gain. So damage reduction cooldowns will slow the rate in which he gains brutality. Once he reaches the full bar, he will smash the tank, dealing a high amount of damage, and apply a 50% damage taken increase for 10 seconds. Other than that, you will just see these bats. They will, fixate on a player. You'll see by the green line. After a few seconds, they will fly along that line and put these fell vomit on the ground, which deals quite a high amount of damage to anybody standing in it. So you just have to move the group around accordingly and try and position the fire as best you can. Try not to take it through the melee like that person just did. Other than that, just keep an eye on the stacks. You can't survive 2 charges in a row. Any more than that, you will need some major cooldowns to survive, but you shouldn't really get off more than maybe 3 charges to an old fight. So you just need to soak one of the charges, and you should be okay for the rest of the fight. After he is dead, you can then move on, and up the stairs here, and you will maybe find some more trash. There's actually a mini boss here, and this boss here is not usually here, but he is only here because of a world quest, which puts him here. And so he's not, most of the time he isn't here. He's only here for certain times, for maybe a couple of days at a time. So once you encounter him, he will put down the disorientating gas, as you've seen there, like the brown swirling circle there. And this gas will basically disorientate you. He seems to put it down based on where his location is, so your tank will just need to kite him slowly down the stairs. You can see this is the first time we've seen this boss here, so we weren't really sure what to do. But we managed quite finely to pop a couple of cooldowns to keep people alive. He will also do a blade barrage, which will strike random targets in a very quick succession, dealing quite high damage. So I had to pop some cooldowns to keep myself alive there, but other than that, it should be pretty manageable. You just need to keep moving the boss down the stairs and avoiding the gas, because it can actually sometimes chain off itself, which I notice if there's 2 overlapping, you can kind of disorientate yourself and walk into a second gas and set that off as well, which you really don't want to do. And finally we come to the last boss, which is Lord Ravencrest. Now, he doesn't do a lot. Once you engage the fight, he will do a tank ability called Unerring Shear. This does high damage to the tank and applies a bleed effect, so active mitigation will help a lot. He also does a Whirling Blade. This will throw out a blade in a target player's direction, and it'll move out slowly and damage anybody along the way, and then it'll move back towards the boss and once again damaging anybody on the way, and it'll also apply a knockback. So just avoid that, whoever is throwing it at, and the melee on the way back. On the side there's a boss called Atosius. He will just cast Shadow Bolt at random targets, and he will also do a Dark Blast, which you can see by the big line blasting energy across in a line there. You just need to avoid that. Once Ravencrest hits 20%, Latosius will jump down and transform into a Dreadlord called Dantaloniax, I think it's pronounced. Shortly after that happens, Ravencrest will buff everyone with 300% increased damage, healing and health, which will help you deal with the encounter. You will have a debuff called Stinging Swarm applied on a random target. This deals high ticking damage every second, but you can actually kill off the swarm, which is damaging the player, so just switch your DPS to the swarm and kill it off to mitigate the damage. Other than that, there will be a Sleeping Cloud, which will put players to sleep if you stand in it, and he will also cast Shadow Bolt Volley, which is not interruptible and will just hit everybody for quite high damage. And finally he will cast Dreadlord's Guile, which he'll kind of split into mirror images, and he will spam blast this Dark Obliteration ability, which is kind of like the Dark Blast from Phase 1, but this time it's casted repeatedly one after the other, and as it kind of moves around the circle area. So you just need to kind of get yourself in position on the outside and just kind of move around the room as the blasts keep coming. But other than that, the boss isn't too difficult. You just have to keep killing the swarms, watching out for the sleeping clouds, and just healing up for the Shadow Bolt Volley. You can't really do anything about the Shadow Bolt Volley, you just have to heal it through. One quick note is the sleeping clouds, if you do get hit in it, it is permanent sleep. The only way it breaks is if the cloud moves away from you and you move out of its cloud as a result of it moving, or you take damage. That's the only way you can break it. But yeah, that's pretty much the entire dungeon, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you'd like to see more in the future, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching.